It's time for Dodger Baseball. Live from Dodger Stadium, Sportsnet LA presents the Dodgers as they take on the Angels. Hi, everybody, and a very pleasant Sunday to you, wherever you may be. For the Dodgers and the Angels, wrapping up a three-game series. High note for the Dodgers. They've won 3 in a row. They remain a game and a half in front of the Giants, who won their ball game in Texas last night in 11 innings. For the Angels, things have turned tough. They have now lost 5 in a row, 8 of the last 9. Houston won its game, so they are 3 games in front of the Angels. The Dodgers will go out on the road to Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. There are 3 games under 500 on the road. And for the Angels, they're 33-21 at home, so they're trying to get well against Cleveland and Baltimore. And remember, earlier this year, the Angels went on a tear and won 25 out of 35. For the pitching today, Corey Rasmus on the mound. He hasn't pitched except for Friday night. He was on the 60-day DL. He had abdominal surgery, and Friday night he was very impressive. He came in and struck out Adrian Gonzalez. Then he struck out Scott Van Slyke, and for good measure, he also struck out Yasiel Puig. He has a career record of 4-3. The name Rasmus might ring a bell. His brother Colby was a first-round pick for the St. Louis Cardinals. For the Dodgers, Matt Latos 3 times has won 14 games, once for San Diego, twice for the Reds, and Matt begins his career as a Dodger today with a record of 4-7. Those are the numbers. Pull up a chair. We got a good ball game and a whole lot more coming up right after this. By Disneyland. Get ready to be dazzled during the Disneyland Resort Diamond Celebration, happening now with spectacular new entertainment and more.
Batting sixth in left field, number 3, Carl Crawford. Batting seventh at third base, number 5, Alberto Callaspo.
Brought to you by Disneyland. Get ready to be dazzled during the Disneyland Resort Diamond Celebration, happening now with spectacular new entertainment and more. Hi, everybody, and a very pleasant Sunday afternoon to you, wherever you may be. Here at Dodger Stadium, the Dodgers and Angels closing up their series. The Angels will then go home back to Anaheim, and the Dodgers will go on the road to Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. We can also tell you an early report. The Giants and Rangers scoreless in the 5th inning. That's Mike Leake's debut for San Francisco. He's locked up with Martin Perez. For the Dodgers, they know that the Giants won last night, so they remain 1.5 in front. For Mike Scioscia, his ball club has some problems. They've lost 5 in a row, 8 of the last 9. Houston won last night, so Houston leads the Angels by 3, and the Angels go home to play Cleveland and Baltimore. For Mike, here are the names on his batting card, starting off with Johnny Giovatella, then Cole Calhoun in right, Mike Trout in center, Albert Pujols at first. David Murphy will be in left field, Eric Ibar at short, Connor Gillespie at third, Chris Iannetta behind the plate, Corey Rasmus on the mound. On the mound for the Dodgers, beginning his career as a Dodger pitcher, is Matt Latos, born in Alexandria, Virginia, lives in the suburbs of Cincinnati. He was originally a 11th round pick for the Padres. He is a big man. He is 6'6", 235 pounds, and he will be 28 the first week of December. Couple of things about Latos besides his personal background, and we can give you some notes on him as a pitcher. He's going on 5 days rest, and on 5 days rest, he's usually at his best. He is 26-16. 4 days rest, he's a break-even 30-30. But let's get into the baseball part of his game. When he was with Florida, he did not get a lot of run support, 2.9 runs. He's inclined to have a wild pitch pop up. He has 9 wild pitches. That's number 1 in the league. He has a lot of problems in the first inning. He has given up 13 runs in the first inning, and he's got even bigger problems when he allows the first pitch to be put in play. The opposition has scored 14. He is more of a strikeout pitcher than a ground out pitcher. And if you toss out one start where he allowed 7 earned runs in 2/3 of an inning, without that start, his ERA is a respectable 3.8. So Johnny Giovatella, and you know how they closely watch ball players? Well, they watch Giovatella, and how about that? He has missed 1 time in 111 swings at fastballs. So we'll see about Latos. Big guy over the top, fastball for a strike, and the count 0-1. So Johnny Giovatella, holding down second base, has hit safely in 9 of the last 10. Did go hitless Friday. That snapped a 9-game hitting streak. Matt turns on the rubber. Now the strike 1 pitch on the way. Over the top again, missing low and away. And a 1-ball, 1-strike count. For Latos, he takes the mound. 78 degrees here at Dodger Stadium. A beautiful Sunday afternoon. Matt reading Grandal, and the 1-1 pitch on the way. Swung on, popped foul off to the right out of play. And the count 1-2. Both Grandal and Latos played for San Diego. Latos came up in 2010, and he was with the Padres for 2010 and 2011. So Giovatella, the right-hand hitting second baseman, up there with a 1-ball, 2-strike count. Grandal in a crouch. And the 1-2 pitch on the way is low. 2-2 the count. Grandal came up to San Diego in 2012, and by that time Latos had moved on to Cincinnati. Two balls and 2 strikes. Giovatella waiting. Latos hesitates now to the windup. Over the top fastball, very high. Ball 3, 3-2. Latos and Adrian Gonzalez were teammates at San Diego in 2010 and part of 2011. That's when Adrian moved on to Boston. 3-2 pitch to Giovatella. Fastball rolled up the middle. Here comes Rollins at the bag. Sidelines it in a hurry and gets his man. Nice play by Jimmy Rollins as Giovatella taps out. Take a look at the Dodgers with the leather. That's one reason why they're in first place. Gonzalez and Kendrick, Rollins and Castro at third. Crawford, Peterson, and Ethier in the outfield. Grandal behind the plate, handling Latos. So we have 1 away. Nice play by Jimmy Rollins. And the batter will be Cole Calhoun. Calhoun started in the first game of the series and had 3 singles and scored twice. Yesterday, he was a pinch hitter late in the 9th inning and drew a walk. And on deck, Mike Trout. So Calhoun trying to get aboard for the big boys. And the pitch to Cole is high. 1 ball and no strikes. Calhoun, stocky left-hand batter. A very good table setter. Last 22 games, he's been hitting .333. Takes a pitch off the plate. 2 balls and no strikes. So Latos certainly over the top. You think of Coleminter of Arizona as a pitching machine, and at least his first couple of tosses to Giovatella That right arm came directly over the top, and at 6'6", almost out of the sky. Over the top he comes with a pitch swung on and missed, and the count 2-1. Take a look on television. You can see him throwing hard over the top. He has pitched very well against teams with a record above 500 and a good solid 3.2 ERA. So Latos ready, and his 2-1 pitch to Calhoun. Cole takes it a little high. 3-1 the count. The problems for Latos, well, he's hit hard early in the game. In his first 25 pitches, the opposition hitting .303, and his ERA in the first 3 innings is over 5. That is up until today. Now the 3-1 pitch on the way to Calhoun. Cole looks, it's ball 4, and now here comes trouble. Trout and Pujols with a man aboard.
Center fielder number 27, Mike Trout.
So Mike Trout coming up, the amazing young center fielder. Trout hitting .314, 32 home runs, 67 runs batted in. Had a big 3-hit game Friday night and was silenced yesterday when he went 0 for 4, striking out twice. He did homer against Kenley Jansen. He also struck out against him last evening. So Matt Latos pitching out of a stretch now to Mike Trout. Big right-hander deals, drops that pitch in for a strike, and the count 0-1. Well, he's now made 12 pitches. We were talking about the fact that he gets hurt in the first 25. 0-1 the count. Matt set at the belt, looks over his left shoulder at Calhoun. Right-hander ready and delivers off speed, and that's foul back, and the count 0-2. So Latos signed by the Padres in 2006 and has now come the journey from San Diego to Cincinnati to Louisville, Pensacola, and now here in Los Angeles and facing Mike Trout. Dodgers trying to sweep the Angels in a 3-game series for the first time since 2006. Strike 2 pitch on the way, sliced foul off to the right. So the count remains no balls and 2 strikes to Mike Trout. Trout kind of rubbing his left wrist a little bit. Remember, he hurt that diving at a ball. Missed a game or 2 with the bad wrist, hit a grand slam home run. So he's facing a pitcher with a fastball, slider, curve, and change. The strike 2 pitch on the way. Matt ready, comes to the plate, swung on and missed. Nope, foul check. So it fouled away from Grandal, and Trout is still there, 0-2. Latos' fastball has been clocked as high as 97. Then the slider and the curve. He tried to throw a knuckle changeup, but the Padres thought he wasn't doing well with the pitch, so he throws a straight change. No balls and 2 strikes, the count to Mike Trout. 1 out, first inning, no score. Latos over the top, down and away, and a 1-ball, 2-strike count. One of the things about Matt Latos is the fact that he is heavily tattooed. So Latos said, I wear my emotions on my sleeve, but that's not the only thing he wears anymore. Latos bends at the waist, looks in to get a sign. 1 ball, 2 strikes to Mike Trout. Trout backs out for the moment. One ball and 2 strikes. Latos ready, comes back again, line drive, just foul, and almost took the feet off Chris Siegel, the third base umpire. Oh, was that drilled. So a bullet down the line. Siegel on the chalk, had to get out of the way and try to call it at the same time, and he did a good job. Trout, by the way, in this series, that is the 16th pitch that he has fouled off. 16. Up there 1-2. 17 pitches made by Latos, and Matt ready at the belt. The 1-2 pitch again is taken a little high. So Latos thought he had a good pitch. Quinn Wolcott, the plate umpire, said you just missed, and the count goes to 2 balls and 2 strikes. Trout, by the way, stands 6'1". When you watch him run, it's hard to believe he checks in at about 235. Latos straightens up, another look over at Calhoun, and with 1 out, the 2-2 pitch. Trout swings and misses and strikes out on an off-speed pitch away. For Mike Trout, he struck out twice last night, though it's the 3rd time he has struck out in the series. Pitched down and away, he tried to get it and came up empty. So now Albert Pujols. Albert Pujols in yesterday's game, 2 for 4, 2 base hits. He struck out once yesterday after striking out 3 times Friday night. So Albert, 2 for 8 in the series with an RBI, hitting .257 with 30 home runs. And he holds up on a pitch inside, ball 1. 1-0 the count. So the great combination punch of Trout and Pujols. However, the rest of the Angels, at least so far, struggling offensively. One reason why they went out and got 3 outfielders, Murphy, DeJesus, and Victorino. Here's the 1-0 pitch on the way to Pujols. Waved at and missed. Great straight change. Pujols hitting on the arm motion, and that pitch just died of exhaustion after it crossed the plate. 1 ball and 1 strike to Albert Pujols. 550 home runs in his great career as Mike Trout looks on. Now the 1-1 pitch on the way. Fastball pulled hard to third. Callaspo the long way to first for the out. So for Matt Latos, he goes through the first inning, gave up a walk, strikes out Trout, gets Pujols, and at the end of half an inning, Angels nothing, Dodgers coming up. New acquisition, Matt Latos, retiring the side after giving up a walk. You retire the side when you're facing Trout and Pujols and you get them. Here's the Dodger lineup. Jimmy Rollins at short, Howie Kendrick at second, Adrian Gonzalez at first, Andre Ethier in right field, and Yasmani Grandal behind the plate. Then you have Carl Crawford in left, Alberto Callaspo at third, Jock Peterson in center field, and Matt Latos on the mound. On the mound, Corey Rasmus out of Columbus, Georgia, 6'1", 220, originally a first-round pick by the Braves out of high school back in 2006. Corey delivers, fastball foul back by Rollins, and the count 0-1. So Jimmy Rollins hitting .214, but he's been a much better hitter of late. He's been on base 8 of his last 9 games. He has 11 home runs, 33 runs batted in. Next pitch, a change with a little break at the end of it, and it's in for a strike. and the count 0-2. Rasmus has a brother, Colby, a first-round pick of the Cardinals, playing in the big leagues. Corey ready and comes back, and it's a little ground ball wide at third. Up with it, Gillespie makes the play to first, and we have one away. We'll take a look at the Angels defensively. They shape up this way: Pujols, Giovitella, Ibar, and Gillespie, with Murphy, Trout, and Calhoun in the outfield. Iannetta handling Rasmus. After 9 years as an Angel, here's Howie Kendrick, who homered in his first at-bat against the Angels. You might be interested to know there are 14 players who have played for all 3 Southern California ball clubs. Kendrick takes ball 1. The list includes Bobby Valentine, Ricky Henderson, Shane Victorino, and Fernando Valenzuela. Yep, they played for all 3. Padres, Angels, Dodgers. Kendrick has played for the Angels and the Dodgers, and on deck, Gonzalez, who played for the Padres and the Dodgers. The 1-0 pitch on the way. Howie looks, and that's off the plate. 2 balls and no strikes. Corey Rasmus on the DL. So his first inning was Friday night. He had been on the DL for 60 days following abdominal surgery. The 2-0 pitch on the way is taken for a strike. 2-1. Rasmus started pitching for the young Braves in 2006, made it to the big leagues in 2013, and the same year he wound up with the Angels, and he's been up and down in the organization. 2-1 pitch is fouled at the plate, and the count 2-2. We mentioned that the Dodgers are going out on the road. They'll be going to Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. You might think, well, Philadelphia, that's a ball club that's really gone south, but they're playing very well of late. They've won 12 of the last 14 since the All-Star break. Then, of course, Pittsburgh, second place behind St. Louis. 2-2 pitch on the way is inside. They're going to check. No swing. Kendrick was lunging, looking for a pitch away, and that just missed, picking up the inside corner. The Howie was locked in and just did get away with it on the check swing. 3-2 to Kendrick. 1 out, first inning, no score. Rasmus set, right-handed delivers, and it's hit in the air to right center and slicing. Mike Trout watching, it's going to go off the wall and picked off by Calhoun. Into second base with a double goes Howie Kendrick. So Howie Kendrick slices one into the gap in right center field. For Kendrick, he continues his solid play. He has 18 doubles, 2 home runs, 2 triples, and 8 home runs. So he drives one to the gap. Calhoun left-handed it back into the infield. So the Dodgers with a runner in scoring position and 1 out. Gonzalez and Ethier coming up. Adrian Gonzalez hitting .295, 21 home runs, 61 runs batted in, hitting .375 since the All-Star break. Waves at an off-speed pitch, and the count 0-1. Corey Rasmus is pitching against the Dodgers because C.J. Wilson goes down for elbow surgery and is lost for the remainder of the year. The Angels, however, losing Wilson, are looking forward to Jared Weaver's return. Strike 1 pitch. Adrian swings and doesn't get it, and the count 0-2. No score. Bottom of the first inning. Final game of the 3. We were talking about the Dodgers going on the road and their schedule. They'll come home following Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and play Washington and Cincinnati. 4 games with the Reds, who got into a fight today with Pittsburgh. Here's the strike 2 pitch, and that's very high, ball 1. The Giants have a very tough schedule. First of all, they're in Atlanta. Then they go to Chicago to play the Cubs. They come home to play Houston and Washington. They're both first place clubs. Go back out on the road and play the Cardinals and Pittsburgh. Come home with the Cubs and the Cardinals. And then the Giants come here starting August 31st. Here's the 1-2 pitch on the way to Adrian. Rasmus deals, and it's swung on. Fly ball to shallow right field. Going out to get it is Giovatella. Holding at second base will be Howie Kendrick. So Giovatella had to go a long way out because Calhoun was playing deep in right field.
16,
2 out. Andre Ethier coming up. Ethier against the Angels has really been dynamite. If you want to talk about the toughest hitters for the Angels to contend with, Joe Mauer hitting .354, Mike Napoli .331, and of course Napoli a former Angel. Jose Altuve .330, and Andre Ethier .325. Though Andre is not only in the lineup, he is hitting cleanup today against Rasmus and the Angels. Rasmus will look back at Kendrick. Right-handed delivers. First pitch a little low. Ball 1, 1-0. Dodgers are 2-1 on the right side of the ledger at home. 36 victories, 18 losses. They are 4 under 500, however, on the road. 1 ball and no strikes. Kendrick looking for a ride home at second base. The 1-0 pitch on the way. Ethier has a look. That's low. Ball 2, 2-0. Ethier backs out for a moment. Now checks back in. 2 down, second. The 2 out in the inning. Bottom of the first. No score. Kendrick at second base. The 2-0 pitch on the way. Off speed for a strike. 2-1 the count. On deck, Yasmani Grandal talking about off speed. Grandal was talking about yesterday's home run, and he said he couldn't believe it. Salas gave him 3 consecutive changeups. So the third one he hit over the center field fence. Here's the 2-1 pitch coming up. Right-handed deals, fastball, 1 hopper to shortstop. Ibar is on it, gets it over the first in time, and that'll be that. So no runs, 1 hit, the double by Kendrick, a man left, and at the end of an inning, no scores. The second inning as a Dodger. He walked Calhoun but got through Trout and Pujols. In his first 9 starts, Latos 1-4 with a ballooned ERA of over 6. Last 7 starts, he's pitched pretty well. A break-even 3-3, but more importantly, a fine ERA of 2.9. The big problem for Matt Latos, like just about any pitcher, especially Matt, is to fall behind in the count. So we'll see what he does now with Murphy. And the first pitch is ball 1. When he's behind 1 ball and no strikes, The opposition has hit .481 on a 2-0 count, 500. Now the 1-0 pitch on the way. Murphy looks at a strike, and the count 1 ball and 1 strike. We were talking about Matt Latos pitching to Yasmani Grandal. It was back in December of 2011. Yasmani Grandal was sent from Cincinnati to San Diego. 1 ball and 2 strikes the count. And Latos went to Cincinnati. So their paths have crossed, and now they're teammates. The 1-2 pitch on the way. Latos delivers, and it's fouled back. That's quite a pitch. It's got to be coming almost out of the sky. I mean, he's 6'6". He's standing on a 10-inch mound. So you are looking up at him for sure. And he pitches downhill. 1-2 pitch on the way. Swung on. Ground ball wide of first. Gonzalez spot throw behind Latos, who makes a nice catch on the run and gets to the bag. If you are the hitter, this is what you see, and actually you'd be lower than this. But you can see he comes right over the top, and on that play makes a good play on Murphy's ground ball. So 1 out, 2nd inning. Here's Eric Ibar. Ibar, the switch hitter. Overall batting average .279. He has a little power left-handed. Both home runs hit left. He has a better batting average right. He's hitting over .300 right-handed. Eric, a good bunter, fouls it away. He has 100 bunt singles. Ibar usually gets on base. He also, because of his running speed, he has 21 base hits that stay on the infield. In the series, Ibar 0 for 4 yesterday, struck out twice, and went 0 for 3 in Game 1. Now the strike 1 pitch on the way. Latos delivers, and it's low. 1 ball and 1 strike. Alberto Callaspo, who at one time was an Angel, well in on the grass at third to defend against his former buddy Eric Ibar. 1 ball, 1 strike, 1 out. 2nd inning, no score. Now the 1-1 pitch sliced off the hands down the left field line, foul. 1-2 the count. He really got jammed that time. And Ibar still there, 1-2. Ibar, despite being hitless in the series, has hit .340 over the last 36 games. That's back to the middle of June. And he hits a hopper to the right side to Kendrick. And the out recorded. So just like that, 2 down in the 2nd inning. For Latos, he has a strikeout and 3 ground balls. And with 2 out now, working on Connor Gillespie. Connor Gillespie, who is replacing David Freese at third base. Freese was hit on the hand by Mike Pelfrey of Minnesota, suffered a fractured right finger. So Gillespie has 4 RBIs in 5 games since being acquired from the White Sox. Connor hitting .244. 2 down, bases empty, no score. Overhand fastball at 90 for a strike, and the count 0-1. One hit in the game so far. Howie Kendrick doubled. Here's the strike 1 pitch on the way. Latos delivers, and that swung on and hit to right. Right there is Ethier in his tracks. Picks off the ball, makes the catch, and that's that. So the Angels down in order, 5 in a row retired since the walk, and at the end of an inning and a half, no score.
A perfect game against the Cubs, and Bob Henley became the first pitcher in Major League history to throw 4 no-hitters. Well, Thursday, August 13th, the first 40,000 fans in attendance receive a Sandy Koufax bobblehead presented by United Healthcare. For tickets, go to Dodgers.com/promotions. Second inning, Grandal, Crawford, and Gallaspo, and right-hander Corey Rasmus ready to go to work. Grandal takes an off-speed breaking ball for ball 1. Grandal with 15 home runs, all 15 hit left-handed. But don't forget the fact he's hitting .371 right-handed. The 1-0 pitch on the way. Rasmus delivers, check swing at the plate on ball 2. 2-0. Talking about 2-0, the Rangers lead the Giants 2-0 top of the 7th inning. The new Giant pitcher, Mike Leake, gave up a 2-run home run to the former Angel, Josh Hamilton. The Giants have 1 hit so far in that game. 2-0 pitch is swung on and missed. Martin Perez still pitching that game for Texas. No score, bottom of the 2nd. Grandal, Crawford, Gallaspo, and if anybody gets aboard, hitting 8th in the lineup, Jock Peterson. The 2-1 pitch coming up, and that's inside at the hands. So 3-1 to Yasmani. Corey back up on top. 27-year-old right-hander lives in Phoenix City, Alabama. The right-hander's 3-1 pitch to Grandal is taken for a high strike. 3-2. Quinn Wolcott is the plate umpire. For Quinn Wolcott, he's had 2 years now in the big leagues. Came up for a Memorial Day doubleheader 2 years ago. The 3-2 pitch is hit on the ground to the right side. Gio Fatella picks it up and makes the play. The Grandal taps out, 1 away. And the batter will be Carl Crawford. Carl Crawford, of course, out for a long time. Crawford making his appearance in his 23rd game for the whole year. The Dodgers have already played 104, this being 105. So he's missed a year. He has a home run, 3 RBIs. He also has 3 doubles and a triple. And the left-hand hitter takes a strike, and the count 0-1. No balls and 1 strike, the count. No score, 1 away, bases empty, bottom of the 2nd. Strike 1 pitch very high, one-handed by Iannetta. 1-1. When the Angels come up in the 3rd, Iannetta and Rasmus, and then Gio Fatella. The 1-1 pitch coming up. Rasmus' pitch is pulled on the ground to the right side. Gio Fatella is on it to make the play. So we have 2 down in the 2nd inning. And the batter, Alberto Callaspo.
Third baseman, number 5, Alberto Callaspo.
Callaspo, a switch hitter, hitting .253 since he came over to the Dodgers. No home runs as a Dodger. He had 1 before he got here. He does have 4 doubles. Callaspo, switch hitter, and batting .264 from this side of the plate. Fouls it away. 0-1 the count. No balls and 1 strike to count to Alberto Callaspo. For the year, a total of 14 runs batted in. Rasmus delivers and works it off the plate away. 92-mile-an-hour fastball. And a 1-ball, 1-strike count. Corey ready, and his 1-1 pitch to Alberto Callaspo is swung on, hit down the left field line, slicing foul, and well out of play. Corey Rasmus always talks about a conversation between his dad Tony and the 2 sons. Corey and Colby. They were 10 years old, just about, and Dad sat him down and said, "You want to make it in the big leagues." The pitch is strike 3 call to Cayaspo, and the dream has come true. Corey and Colby are big leaguers. Down goes Cayaspo, and at the end of 2, no score. Annetta, Corey Rasmus, and Johnny Giovatella. If you're here in the ballpark, or especially watching on television, you can look at the left arm of Yasmani Grandal. It is a chart showing how the Dodgers want Latos and Grandal to put their heads together and shut down the Angels. The results of a lot of hard scouting, and they've all had that extensive meeting long before the game. So Rick Honeycutt, I'm sure, had a lot to do with it. And Latos ready, and here we go. And the first pitch for a strike to Chris Iannetta, the catcher. Iannetta hitting under 200, has power. He had 98 home runs in his career, 8 this year. The strike 1 pitch on the way. That's taken low and away. For Latos, he made 33 pitches in the first 2 innings. Temperature at game time 78, very comfortable. Now the 1-1 pitch on the way, and that's low and away. Ball 2, 2-1 to Chris Iannetta. Iannetta hit his 8th home run Tuesday. The 2-1 pitch on the way. Chris swings, and a high fly ball to left center, pretty deep, but it's playable. Crawford will make the catch, 1 step onto the track. So Iannetta, a long fly ball to left, 1 away, and Corey Rasmus coming up.
Number 46, Corey Rasmus.
Considering the fact that Rasmus has not played all year until he had 1 inning Friday night, this is truly a first at bat, even though we're early in August. First time he has ever carried the bat to the plate. Latos ready and delivers. Corey has a look at his strike. Ethier is up, shallow in right. Peterson shading right center. He's shallow. Crawford a respectful left field. The strike 1 pitch of the right-hand batter swung on and fouled back. And the count 0-2 to Corey Rasmus. Of course, his brother Colby has to take a lot of at-bats. He needs base hits for a living. Corey is just filling the number 9 spot in a National League ballpark. Strike 2 pitch, fastball, a high chopper up the middle. Rollins goes behind the bag, makes it look so easy. Wow. short hopping on the dead run, and it was almost ho-hum. So 2 down. That's worth another look if you're watching on TV. Big high bouncer, and it's just, how do you do? So Rasmus grounds to Rollins. 2 down, 3rd inning, no score. Johnny Giovatella coming up. That was an interesting note about Giovatella. It's virtually impossible to get a fastball by him without him at least fouling it off. First pitch is in for a strike, 0-1, and that was a 92-mile-an-hour fastball. He has only swung and missed once on a fastball. That's good enough to have him hitting 300 against that particular pitch. He's not a 300 hitter. The next one to John is a little high. Giovatella came in hitting 264. So Matt Latos into his 3rd inning as a Dodger, and he has 2 out in a scoreless game. The 1-1 pitch coming up. Over the top, and that's in the dirt. Scooped out by Grandal. 2-1 the count. Waiting on deck, Cole Calhoun. Latos checking the defense behind him for a minute. Now the veteran right-hander comes back 2-1, and it's a line drive, base hit into center field. Peterson up with it. Giovatella, a 2-out single, and the batter will be Cole Calhoun. Though it'll be the second time through the lineup, and that's always interesting to see how the hitters try to adjust and how the pitcher does the same. So a 2-out base hit. Giovatella at first base. Giovatella has 1 stolen base. So 2 out. Gio at first. Cole Calhoun, who walked in the 1st inning, checks in. Stocky left-hand batter. He has the most important at-bat in the Angel lineup. He fouls the first pitch away, 0-1. His job is to extend the inning for Mike Trout and Albert Pujols. So Calhoun the hitter. Trout on deck. Great name for a Western star, Cole Calhoun. I mean, you can just see him walking through those swinging doors. 0-1 the count. Kendrick plays him right on the rim at second base. Breeze blowing from left to right. There goes the runner on a pitch low. The throw goes into center field. And on his feet is Giovatella, and he'll go to 3rd base. So Giovatella steals second, takes 3rd on the throwing error, charge to Grandal. Got a good jump. The pitch down and away, and the throw sailed way offline. Rollins, no chance to get his glove on the ball, and Giovatella goes on with the error. For the Dodgers, and of course their defense has been wonderful. That's their 44th error this year. For the Angels, they've committed 56. So a runner at 3rd, 2 out. And remember the note we told you about Latos. He has 9 wild pitches. So that's of concern right now. Latos, as Mattingly and Honeycutt look on. Matt straightens up. Calhoun waiting on a 1-1 pitch. Right-hander delivers off speed, a fly ball to right field. Ethier is there to pick it off, and that's that. So that's a big out. You don't have to work against Trout with somebody on. No runs, 1 hit, a man left at 3rd. And at the end of 2.5 innings, no score. by Matt Latos and then Jimmy Rollins. Peterson in and out of the box, so timeout for the moment. Dodgers hope by sitting Peterson down that he'll take another look at the game and perhaps will help him when he's actively engaged, so we'll see. Last game he played, he was 0 for 4 and struck out 3 times. First pitch in for a strike, and the count 0-1. The Giant game in Texas moving rapidly. They're in the top of the 8th inning. Rangers lead the Giants 2-0. Home run by Josh Hamilton. Check swing on a pitch out of the strike zone, and Peterson once again in a hole. No balls and 2 strikes. Young center fielder, brilliant with the glove, but he has struck out 125 times. He does have 21 home runs, 43 runs batted in. Rasmus, right side loaded up, time at the plate. Peterson's last home run was the 25th of July in New York against the Mets. Strike 2 pitch is swung on and missed. Slow breaking ball, and down he goes. 2 strikeouts in a row now for Corey Rasmus.
Pitcher number 55.
And the batter, Matt Latos. Jose Alvarez, a left-hander, throwing in the Angel bullpen. Remember, Corey Rasmus hasn't played at all. He had 1 inning under his belt this year. That was Friday night when he struck out all 3 Dodgers, Adrian Gonzalez, Scott Van Slyke, and Yasiel Puig. With 1 inning under his belt, he takes the mound today. He has 2 out with an out in the 3rd, and the opposing pitcher, Matt Latos, who's not a bad hitter. He promptly swings, fouls the first pitch away. Latos with that big strike zone, he's 6'6". He has 5 hits this year, 5 for 18. He has 1 run batted in, and very important, he has 9 sacrifices. 0-1 to count to Matt Latos. Rasmus back with a fastball hit in the air to right center. Trout on the run, and he'll make the play. Bailing out was Calhoun, letting the center fielder had a wide open space to make the catch. So 2 down in the 3rd inning. And the batter will be Jimmy Rollins. Don't forget, when the Angels come up in the 4th inning, it's Mike Trout, Albert Pujols, and then David Murphy. Jimmy Rollins tapped at 3rd in the 1st inning. Jimmy 0 for 1. You know, among active players, there have been 31 200-hit seasons, including 3 players in the game today. Adrian Gonzalez has had 200 hits twice, 2013 and 2011. Albert Pujols, 2012, and way back in 2003. And then you have Jimmy Rollins. He's had 200 hits in 2012 and in 07. Crawford has 194 coming into the game. Here's the strike 1 pitch on the way. Rollins has a look. 1-1. Crawford's close. 194 back in 2005. Mike Trout had 190 hits in 2013. Rollins fouling the next pitch off. Where are they right now? Well, Trout has 116 hits. Pujols 99. And you'll see them in the 4th inning. Bottom of the 3rd, no score. 1 ball, 2 strikes to Jimmy Rollins. This could very well be the best inning for Rasmus. We'll see. Corey ready, and the pitch high over the head of Rollins, and a 2-ball, 2-strike count. Two and 2. 2 down, bases empty. Rasmus gave up a double to Kendrick, and he's retired 7 in a row since, and he misses to go 3 and 2 to Jimmy Rollins. Waiting on deck, patiently waiting, Howie Kendrick. Rasmus very deliberate, Probably fighting a little exhaustion now. Right-hander ready. And the 3-2 pitch coming up, swung on, ground ball, smothered off the glove of Pujols. The throw by Giovatelli is wide of the mark, backed up by Iannetta, and safely aboard at first is Jimmy Rollins. Pretty tough play for a first baseman to spot his throw to the pitcher. It's even tougher for a second baseman. So when the ball got away from Pujols, that long throw was awry, but backed up by Iannetta. So it'll be a base hit for Jimmy Rollins. A 2-out single brings up Howie Kendrick. So Rollins base hit off Pujols' glove. Rollins aboard, always a threat to run. Rollins has stolen 8, but he's also been caught 7 times. So Kendrick doubled in the first inning. Hit the ball to the gap in right center. Breeze blowing from left to right. On deck, Adrian Gonzalez. 2 out, third inning, no score. Rasmus set, turns, backs off the rubber. Rollins back on the bag. Howie Kendrick hitting .289. Rollins poised over there, draws a throw. Of course, in his so-called salad days, Rollins was terrific. Stole as many as 47 bases. That was for the Phillies back in 2008. The year before, he was a one-man gang. So Rollins off the bag, no score, 2 out, bottom of the third. Rasmus set. Rollins bluffs the pitch low and away. 1 ball and no strikes. When Jimmy Rollins played for the Phillies, he had 2,306 base hits. Jimmy poised, ready, draws a throw, gets back on his hands and knees. Rollins together right up to the moment has 2,384 hits, 7th among the active players. So Jimmy taking his lead. The 1-0 pitch to Howie Kendrick, swung on, hit to high and deep center. Trout to the track, to the wall, gone. So Howie Kendrick unloads a towering fly ball to center, his 9th home run of the year. Gives him 45 runs batted in, and the Dodgers take a 2-0 lead. So Kendrick hit a home run his first at bat Friday against his old club. He doubled his first at bat today, and he clears the wall despite the efforts of Mike Trout. Well, the Dodgers get the single by Rollins at ground ball off Pujols' glove. That would have been the 3rd out. Instead, it kept the inning alive, and Kendrick homered. Gonzalez fouls it away, 0-1 the count. 2-0 Dodgers 3rd inning. They began the day leading the Giants by a game and a half. Kendrick has had 2 home runs and a double in the series. He also had a single last night. So he has really stuck it to his old club, and the Dodgers with a chance to increase their lead to 2.5 against San Francisco. The Giants are losing 2-0 in the 8th inning. Gonzalez, who popped up in the first inning, up there 1 ball and 1 strike. The next one is swung on and fouled away. Earlier we mentioned the fact that Jose Alvarez, the left-hander, was throwing in the bullpen, and I was thinking if Kendrick extended the inning, they'd bring in Alvarez to pitch to Gonzalez. But Kendrick didn't extend the inning, he broke it in half, and it's 2-0 Dodgers. 1-2 pitch on the way, high and inside. 2 balls and 2 strikes, 2 out. Dodgers lead 2-0 in the 3rd, trying to sweep a 3-game series from the Angels for the first time since 2006. 2-2 pitch on the way. Grounded foul outside of first. So Adrian's still there, hitting .294. 21 home runs, 61 runs batted in, and he has piled up 110 hits. Meanwhile, Howie Kendrick always found somewhere near Jimmy Rollins, but right now he's sitting alongside Carl Crawford, and Rollins 1 seat away. 2-2 pitch coming up. Fastball just inside. He had him set up for that pitch, but he missed. 3-2 the count. So Rasmus trying to go 3, and he was on his way. He had 2 out here in the third. Then the single by Rollins, home run by Kendrick. 3-2 pitch, swung on and missed. Gonzalez way out in front of an off-speed pitch. But talking about way out in front, that was Howie Kendrick. He hit one high and deep and out of front, out of the ballpark, over the center field wall. And at the end of 3, it's the Dodgers 2 and the Angels nothing. With an EPA estimated 31 highway MPG, it's the perfect choice. Visit Jeep.com today. And by Flex Alert. This summer, the power is in your hands. FlexAlert.org. 2-0 Dodgers, 4th inning. And now trying to climb a big mountain is a big man. After Howie Kendrick hits a 2-run home run to give him a lead, Matt Latos working to Trout, Pujols, and Murphy. Matt Bredian delivers, and Trout a slicing drive to deep right. Going back as Ethier on the track to make the catch directly in front of the right field wall. So Trout a long out the long way, and we have one down. It's interesting, at the time, a small maneuver. When the Angels lost Mark Teixeira to free agency, they used the compensatory draft pick to get Mike Trout. And when the Cardinals lost Albert Pujols to free agency, they used the compensatory draft pick to get star pitcher Michael Wacha. So Trout a long out to right, and the batter now Albert Pujols. First pitch, a strike, 0-1. Pujols grounded to third in the first inning. Hit the ball hard right to Alberto Callaspo. Oh and 1. 1 ball and 1 strike. 2 runs, 3 hits for the Dodgers, no runs, 1 hit for the Angels. And their left-hander is still warming up with Ethier, Grandal, and Crawford coming up for the Dodgers. 1-1 pitch, low, ball 2. So Ethier, a left-hand hitter. Grandal will have to turn around to bat right-handed. And then the left-hand hitting Crawford. so it's made to order for Socha. Rasmus did well until that ground ball off the glove of Albert Pujols. 3-1. Pujols has always been a full player. In other words, not just a great hitter. He was a very good base runner and a fine fielding first baseman, but naturally he's lost some range at 35. Ground ball to the hole, base hit into left field. So Pujols, who had 2 hits yesterday, gets a base hit today after striking out 3 times Friday night. For the Angels, that would be their 2nd hit. Remember, yesterday they struggled. They had 2 hits in 8 innings against Clayton Kershaw, then got a walk and a couple of hits for a run in the 9th inning. So Trout stands and watches instead of being in the thick of things. Here's Murphy, grounded hard. Nice play by Gonzalez to get him. Ball 1. And ball 2. Latos, growing up in Florida, was a big Marlins fan. In fact, he went to the first Marlins game ever played, opening day 1993. He was about 5½. That's right. And he remembers all the highlights. Went to quite a few games. Saw Gary Sheffield hit 2 home runs. Andre Galarraga hit one up. Devon White making great plays. Then he changed allegiance and became a Red Sox fan. But as he said, I must have 30 or 40 Marlins pennant at home. Matt committed to a baseball scholarship to the University of Oklahoma. He didn't sign with the Padres, and he didn't go to Oklahoma either. He opted to go to Broward Community College instead. Little chopper. Kendrick whirls, throws to Rollins, and they get the force play. So Pujols is erased. 2 down, and the batter will be Eric Ibar.
Number 2, Eric Ibar.
Ibar grounded out in the 2nd inning, 0 for 1. Matt Latos will tell you that as a young player, he was full of himself. He had a big problem of attitude. It took him a while. I guess they called it prolonged and aggravated adolescence, but eventually he grew to be a strong young man, controlling his emotions. He's in the dirt for ball 1, 1-0. Max said it started in 2010, and I just kind of vowed to be different, to be a little more outgoing. He was actually miserable because inside he was going out of his way not to talk to people. That's how he got a bad reputation, but he's over that now. I would think so. At 27, going on 28. Murphy at first with 2 out. And the 1-0 pitch to Eric Ibar. Instead, time at the plate. You know how a quarterback, with everybody screaming and hollering, would look down at the card taped to his wrist about a play? Grandal looks at the card taped to his left forearm before a pitch. And that's promptly hit in the air. Peterson on the dead run backhands it. So he's not hitting a lick, but that glove still has magic in it, and he takes an extra base hit away from Ibar and a run from the Angels. And at the end of 3½ innings, 2-0 Dodgers. come out August 14th. Take your place on the field for a fireworks show featuring a musical mix selected by Dodger players. For more information, go to Dodgers.com/promotions. Matt Latos makes 12 pitches to retire the side in the fourth. A dazzling running catch by Jock Peterson. So at the end of 3.5 innings, Dodgers lead 2-0 on Howie Kendrick's home run. Cesar Ramos will now come in and pick up for Corey Rasmus. Dodgers will have Andre Ethier to start. Andre 0 for 1, grounded to short in the first inning. Facing Cesar Ramos, who was born in Los Angeles and lives in Pico Rivera. Went to school at Long Beach State. Ramos pitched the 8th inning Friday night, made 14 pitches. That's fouled away 0-1. In that inning, Grandal singled, Callaspo walked, and Crawford came in as a pinch hitter, grounded into a double play. Ramos is 6'2", 205-pounder, originally a first-round pick by the Padres. That's a strike, 0-2. Ramos with the Padres in 2010, came up in 2009. 0-2. Slow curveball, swung on and missed. So Ethier goes down on a big slow curve. That'll bring up Yasmani Grandal. Take a look at the pitch. That's a little bit like a Kershaw curve. Not high and not as slow, but you get the general idea. So Ramos with the Padres in 09 and 10. Grandal didn't get there till 2012. So they were never teammates. First ball chopped foul, 0-1 the count. So Grandal grounded to short against Rasmus. Now turns around to hit right-handed. Matt Latos has made 59 pitches so far in 4 innings and leading 2-0. Slow breaking ball off the plate. Cesar Ramos, his mom and dad from Chihuahua in Mexico. He pitched for the Mexican team in the 2013 World Baseball Classic. 1-1. Ball 2. 2-1. So Ethier strikes out on the slow curve. 2-2 the count to Grandal. And for Corey Rasmus, he goes 3 innings and is charged with 2 runs, 3 hits. Had Albert Pujols been able to handle a ground ball by Jimmy Rollins, Rasmus would have given them 3 shutout innings. But Albert couldn't make the play, and Kendrick came up and hit one over the center field wall. Ball 3. 3-2. For Cesar Ramos, working on Grandal, basically fastball, slider, curve, and a change. He also has a cutter. And waiting on deck, Kyle Crawford. 3-2. And that's lifted into shallow right center. A trio of Angels. It's going to drop. So Yasmani Grandal drops a fly ball single into no man's land, with Trout, Gio Votella, and Calhoun all converging. One of those frustrating moments for the Angels, so near and yet so far to all 3. But it still winds up and finds the ground. So Grandal, a fly ball single, and now Carl Crawford, who grounded out in the second inning. Carl starting today in left field. And a high fly ball. I mean high. Ibar going out. Trout has an easier play. And Mike makes the catch. So Crawford, big league fly ball. 2 down. Alberto Callaspo coming up.
Number 5, Alberto Callaspo.
Mike Trout out there in center field gives you a lot. And he is yet to make an error. So with 2 out, Callaspo, who struck out. They're in the 9th inning in Texas. The Giants trailing. However, they have the bases loaded. And Buster Posey is at the plate with 1 out. So Rangers 2, Giants nothing. And the Giants, who came up with 3 in the 8th inning last night to tie up the game, force it to go 11 and beat the Rangers. Trying to come back in the 9th with 1 out. Bases loaded and Posey at the plate. 1-1. One reason the Giants are the world champions, despite being a wild card, just seems like they never quit and they're never out of a game. Callaspo, short lead, held on by Pujols. Well, I'm checking Grandal over there, and Posey has just singled in a run. Meanwhile, a long fly ball down the line in the corner and foul. Posey has just singled to drive in 1 run, so the bases remain loaded. It's now 2-1 in favor of the Rangers with 1 out in the 9th inning. And their MVP for the last month since he came back, Hunter Pence, at the plate. Pence and Belt hit home runs last night, and now Hunter is checking in with a chance to even get the Giants ahead. So it's 2-1 Texas, 9th inning, bases still loaded, 1 out, and Pence at the plate. Callaspo, meanwhile, up there with a 1-2 count. Grandal at first. Dodgers lead 2-0. Ramos, 31-year-old left-hander. And the breaking ball misses. 2-2. Grandal with a pop fly single in the 3rd inning. The ground ball off the glove of Albert Pujols for a base hit. With 2 out, opened the door, and Howie Kendrick hit a 2-run home run, and that's the ball game so far. 2 balls, 2 strikes, 2 out. Dodgers lead 2-0. Slow curveball in there for strike 3 call. 2 strikeouts for Ramos. No runs ahead and a man left. And at the end of 4, a good look by Callaspo, and he pays the bill. It's 2-0 Dodgers. The best moments of the week on and off the field. Don't miss Dodger Clubhouse tomorrow at 7 on Sportsnet LA. Well, once in a while it just doesn't work out. Case in point today. The Giants are trailing 2-1 in the ninth, 1 out, bases loaded, and the batter is Hunter Pence. And how many times has he delivered? But not today. Pence grounded into a double play, and the Giants come up a buck short. The Rangers win it 2-1. So for the moment, at least, the Dodgers are enjoying a 2-game lead. It'll either break back to 1.5 or go on to 2.5, depending upon what happens. We're in the 5th inning. Gillespie, Iannetta, and then Ramos, the pitcher. Gillespie flied to right field in the 2nd inning. This time bangs it into left center for a base hit. Peterson comes up with it to a leadoff single for Connor Gillespie. That is hit number 3 for the Angels. Iannetta flied to left field in the 3rd inning. Iannetta looking down to Gary DiSarcina. Alfredo Griffin at first, checking with Mike Scioscia. 2 runs, 4 hits for the Dodgers, no runs, 3 hits for the Angels, and we're in the 5th inning. Fastball strike. Iannetta struggling with the bat, hitting 194, but he does have power. He has 98 career home runs. One ball and 1 strike. Iannetta with 8 home runs, 26 RBIs. Another look down to DiSarcina. Shane Victorino comes out on deck. There's a high foul ball heading for the stands. No play for Adrian. 1-2 the count. So the flying Hawaiian, Shane Victorino, comes out on deck. He'll bat for Ramos. Shane, a right-hand batter, used to be a switch hitter at one time. Jose Alvarez up again in the Angel bullpen. 1-2 the count to Iannetta. Gillespie at first, nobody out. 2-0 Dodgers in the 5th. Angels trying to snap a 5-game losing streak that has caused them to lose 8 of the last 9. 1-2. Fouled away. Dodgers pack up and leave town tomorrow, going to Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. The Phillies have awakened since the All-Star break. They've won 12 of 14. So it's not the easy stop that it looked like it might be before the break. Then they'll go on to Pittsburgh. 1-2. High fly ball to right. Ethier. So Iannetta goes the other way. Gillespie holding at first. Shane Victorino will now go back to the dugout. David DeJesus, another left-hand batter, will come up. So it's DeJesus.
Sitting for the Angels, number 3, David DeJesus.
He'll be batting for Ramos. DeJesus is the fella who has 4 inside the park home runs in his career. He did not appear in the first game except as a pinch hitter and hit back to the box. Started last night and went 0 for 3. And ball 1. Nice block by Yasmani Grandal. 1 out. Gillespie at first. Dodgers holding on to a 2-0 lead. Matt Latos has made 66 pitches, which translates into 7 pitches here in the 5th inning. 1 ball and no strikes. Lato's a long wait, too much of a long wait. DeJesus, checking in at home plate as a pinch hitter, is from Brooklyn. Lives in Wheaton, Illinois, went to Rutgers University in New Jersey on the banks of the Raritan. Pops it up, left side, Callaspo, sunglasses glistening. Whoa. So 2 down. And the batter now will be Johnny Giovatella, who grounded to short and then singled to center.
Johnny Giovatella.
Yesterday, the Angels did not get a runner to second base until the 9th inning. Today, Giovatella single stole second and went to third on the throwing error charged to Grandal. So Gillespie at first with 2 out, and the pitch fouled away. 0-1. Gillespie does not have a stolen base either with the White Sox or the Angels. Connor ready to take a cautious lead. Giovatella 1 for 2, hitting .266. That's low. 1 ball, 1 strike. Matt Latos ready to make his 70th pitch on a 1 ball, 1 strike count. Matt taking plenty of time. No reason to rush. Now the 1-1 pitch on the way to Johnny Giovatella. And it's a roller to Rollins. A little feed to Kendrick. No runs, 1 hit, and 1 man left. So at the end of 4.5 innings, it remains Dodgers 2, Angels nothing. To you by your Southern California Toyota dealers. Now during Toyota's summer savings, you can save big on any 2015 Camry. Bottom of the 5th inning, and hail, hail, the gang's all here. Big crowd on hand at Dodger Stadium for the final game of the homestand. Dodgers trying to sweep the Angels. And they'll look at another pitcher. It's Jose Alvarez, who's from Barcelona, Venezuela. He's 5'11", 180. He'll just turn 26 late in May. Originally signed by the Red Sox. He was a Tigers minor league pitcher of the year a couple of years ago, but moved along, came here after a couple of trades. The Angels sent Andrew Romine, the infielder, to Detroit to pick up Alvarez, and he'll face Jock Peterson, then Matt Latos, and Jimmy Rollins. Latos, by the way, has made 70 pitches in 5 innings. Only 14 pitches an inning. That's pretty good. That's ball 1 to Jock. One and 0. 1-1. Peterson struck out, made a dazzling running catch of a ball hit by Ibar, which prevented the Angels from scoring in the 4th inning. If that ball gets through, it's at least a double, and Murphy would have scored from first base. 1-1. 1-2. So Jock having a terrible time up at the plate, just trying to make contact. But boy, what a play he makes on Ibar. It's hit into right center, and he makes a backhanded catch. Right arm fully extended. That saved a big run. One and two. And down he goes again. So Peterson now has struck out 127 times. So you can just imagine what he's going through. So Alvarez nails him. 6 Dodgers have struck out. Mark McGwire, the hitting coach, still trying to figure out the puzzle. And talking about Peterson earlier this year, we mentioned the fact we thought he might be the best defensive center fielder the Dodgers ever had. There's a base hit for Latos. For Matt, that would be his 6th hit this year. So he's a pretty good hitting pitcher. Anyway, a lot of people said, well, wait a minute. You're talking about Willie Davis and Duke Snider. Yep. I really think Peterson could be a better center fielder with the glove. Had nothing to do with the bat. And of course, both Snider and Davis had long, successful careers. If Jock doesn't hit, he'll have to go back, I assume. But boy, what a glove. Here's Jimmy Rollins, grounded to third, got a key hit with 2 out, ground ball single off Pujols' glove. That kept the door open, and Howie Kendrick hit a home run, and that's it. 2-0 Dodgers, bottom of the 5th inning. Oh, and 2. When the Angels come up in the 6th inning, they'll have Calhoun, Trout, and Pujols. Amongst them, they are 1 for 5 with a walk. 0-2. Ball 1. The hit belongs to Pujols. The walk belongs to Calhoun. So for Matt Latos, in the middle of the game, he will face his biggest challenge. Not just the Angel hitters, but after working 70-some-odd pitches. Fastball pulled, and by the diving third baseman Gillespie. Down to second base goes Latos. So Dodgers at first and second with 1 out. Rollins is 2 for 3, and here comes Howie Kendrick.
Second baseman, Howie
Kendrick doubled in the 1st inning, and then in the 3rd inning unloaded a fastball high and deep, Trout to the wall, but it was gone. And the Dodgers enjoy the fruits of his labor and lead 2-0. And now they're looking at him with a chance to get some more. So Rollins 2 for 3, Alvarez now has given up 2 hits. He has a strikeout. Kendrick followed by Gonzalez. And a roller down to the shortstop eye bar. They get one. It's going to be turned in time for the double play. And that'll end the inning. So no runs, 2 hits, 1 left. And at the end of 5, 2-0 Dodgers. Been a theory, a discussion about what we can do about the ball. Oh yeah, it's a white ball, but it gets dirty, and they can also scuff it up. And way back in the early days, they'd play that one ball to the death of the ball. It would be so dirty. So finally in 1938, Larry McPhail, who owned the Dodgers, the Brooklyn Dodgers, he experimented with yellow balls, dandelion yellow, believe it or not. They played one game against the Cardinals. Dodgers won the game 6-2, but they didn't use the yellow ball again until the beginning of 39. Why? They had 3 yellow balls left, and back in those Depression days, they were not about to waste a baseball. And so went the yellow ball, and then Charlie Finley tried it up in Oakland, but we're back to the white ball. Let's go back to this one. Matt Latos taking plenty of time before going back out to the mound. He has done exceptionally well. He has made 70 pitches. He's allowed 1 man to get the third, and that was the overthrow by Grandal. He had a rough first inning in the sense he made 22 pitches, but he's been breezing along pretty well ever since. 11, 14, 12, and 11 again to give him 70. We were talking about when he first started the game about how important the count is. It's always important, but it'll be especially important now. Calhoun, Trout, and Pujols. Slow curveball for a strike. The problem counts for him: 1-0, 2-0, and 2-1. Calhoun walked and flied to right. Trout on deck has struck out and flied to right. Pujols has grounded to third and single to left. Check swing for a strike. 0-2 to Cole. And on deck, your eyes are always on him. Calhoun, followed by Trout, and then Pujols on the steps, ready to come up. That's a line drive down the left field line. Over to get the ball is Crawford. On his way to second and making it easily is Calhoun. So now Matt Latos will face his first serious challenge, and he's going to be back up in the Dodger bullpen as Calhoun opens up the sixth with a double to left. In the Dodger pen, Luis Avilan, whom we've never seen pitch, is heating up. So here's Mike Trout. Struck out, flied to right. Last night, struck out twice, went 0 for 4. First game, single, home run, and triple. Hitting .365 with runners in scoring position. The big reason why he has 67 runs batted in. Off the plate, ball 1. You don't realize how big Mike Trout is when you see him run. He's so fast. Hard to believe he weighs 235. That's a strike. 1 ball and 1 strike. This is really what you pay your money for. A clutch situation as Avalon is in the pen and the big boys are coming up. Trout and Pujols. 1 ball, 1 strike. That's a strike inside part of the plate. Trout watches that thing run in. Part of the zone. One ball and 2 strikes. In on the knuckles, 2-2. We mentioned it last night. It's an awesome thought. Bill James, the stats expert, has figured out that Mike Trout is 4 years from his peak, and he has Pujols hitting back of him. 2-2. Ground ball up the middle. Kendrick backhands it, turns, throws to get him. Over to third base goes Calhoun. So a good play by Howie Kendrick to plug the middle and take a base hit away from Trout.
First baseman, Albert Pujols.
You can see that Kendrick was playing up the middle, but he had to go beyond second base, and he has the arm to make the play. There are some second basemen who could cover that ground, but couldn't throw him out. But Kendrick was able to do it, and Trout runs very well. All right, 1 out, runner at third. It's the second time the Angels have had a man at third. And here's Pujols, grounded to third, single to left. Breaking ball, broken bat, that's going to score a run. Rollins will throw him out. So Pujols breaks the bat, but also picks up his 66th run batted in. And we have a tough 2-1 game in favor of the Dodgers. David Murphy is grounded out, hit into a force play, 0 for 2. So Pujols breaks the bat and still strong enough to pick up the runner from third on a ground ball to short. Dodgers were not about to play the infield up, not in the 6th inning with Pujols. So here's Murphy, grounded to Gonzalez, and hit into a force play by way of Howie Kendrick. And hits one to Kendrick. That'll be that. So for Matt Latos, he goes 6 and allows 1 run, and we'll see if they'll send him back out there in the 7th. At the end of 5.5 innings, Dodgers 2, Angels 1. Sunday, August 10th, Dodgers and Nationals. Pick up your Fernando Valenzuela pin, number 5 in the Cy Young Pin Collector Series, presented by 76. For more information, visit Dodgers.com/promotions. Adrian Gonzalez leading it off after Latos made 10 pitches, allows a run, and the Dodgers lead 2-1, bottom of the 6th. And a strike. Gonzalez, Ethier, and Grandal against the left-hander Alvarez. Gonzalez popped up, struck out. That's off the plate. Juan Nicasio is up in the Dodger bullpen. And we'll see whether Matt Latos will take the mound or not. He made 80 pitches in 6 innings. Rather remarkable. Flying across the country, joining a new ball club, and going up against a very tough club. 2-1 to count. Alvarez is due to bat 4th when the Angels hit in the 7th. So if they get anything going, they'll hit for him. Way off the plate. 3-1. So the difference in the game right now, the ground ball off the diving Albert Pujols was hit by Rollins. It went for a single, and Kendrick hit a 2-run home run. That was with 2 out. So that's ball 4 to Gonzalez. Dodgers have not done much hitting. They have 2 runs, 6 hits. They had a 2-hit inning in the 5th, but Kendrick was riding the major league elevator. He had the home run to go to the penthouse in the 3rd, went to the basement when he grounded into a double play in the 5th. Andre Ethier grounded to short, struck out, 0 for 2. Usually has a lot of success against the Angels. That's a strike. 0-1. 2 runs, 6 hits, 1 error for the Dodgers. 1 run, 4 hits for the Angels. Oh and 1. And another strike. In 1-run games, the Dodgers have been in 31 1-run games. They are 14 and 17, but their record at home is okay. They're 10 and 6 in 1-run games here. They get killed on the road. The Angels in 1-run games, they've been in 19, 16 and 13, and they're 2 under on the road. Meanwhile, Ethier struggles and strikes out for the 2nd time. So Alvarez has 2 strikeouts. Grandal, turning around to hit right-handed, has grounded out, single to right. Giants lost, in case you were not around to hear it. They were trailing 2-0 in the 9th inning. They had the bases loaded with 1 out. Buster Posey singled to drive in a run. So it was 2-1 Rangers, 1 out, and the bases still loaded. And Hunter Pence came up and hit into a double play. 0-2 the count to Yasmani Grandal. Alvarez daring to throw a changeup. Remember, we told you yesterday, Salas threw him 3 straight changeups, and he hit the 3rd one over the center field wall. And down he goes, looking out at Alvarez as he walks away. So 2 strikeouts here, and the batter now will be Carl Crawford. Crawford grounded out, fly to center, 0 for 2. The Angels are due to send up Ibar, Gillespie, and Iannetta in the 7th. 2-1 Dodgers. Ball one. For the Angels, down a bit, having lost 5 straight, 8 of the last 9. But they have to get a lift. They got good pitching for Rasmus, Ramos, and now Alvarez. Dodgers lifted by Matt Latos, their newest pitcher, who has worked 6 and allowed 1 run. Fouled away. Nice sneaky fastball at 91, kind of jamming Crawford. Gonzalez at first. Pujols not holding him on. They don't expect him to try and run with 2 out. Left-hand hitter up at the plate. And ground ball the other way to the shortstop. Ibar, nice pick to throw him out on a tricky hopper. So no runs, no hits, a leadoff walk, and a man left. And at the end, it's 6, 2-1 Dodgers. Dodger Baseball on Sportsnet LA is brought to you by Nissan. Choose Nissan today for great offers on our most exciting lineup ever. Shop ChooseNissan.com. Now we have entered a most interesting area of the game. Dodgers lead 2-1. Matt Latos made 80 pitches, allowed just 1 run, and has called it a day. And the Dodgers send Juan Nicasio out to the mound. What makes it so interesting as the Dodgers dare to go to the bullpen this early, 7th inning. Why? Well, for the first part of the year, Minnesota had the top bullpen of 1.7 earned run average. The Dodgers, in 30 teams in the major leagues, the bullpen is last, a rather breathtaking last. The Dodger bullpen has a swollen earned run average of 6.2. And remember, Kenley Jansen worked Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. He's been fighting a bug, so I'm not sure if they can even use Kenley today. So interesting, you bet. Seventh inning, and Eric Ibar, switch hitter, batting left-handed. Ball 1. Ibar grounded out, robbed of an extra base hit, and a run batted in. In fact, looking back now, if Jock Peterson doesn't make the play on the ball hit by Ibar, we have a tied-up game. It's now the difference, with the Dodgers leading 2-1. One thing Peterson has to do, and I'm sure he's been doing it, is concentrating on his defense. The worst thing any player can do, but especially somebody with a lot of ground to cover, you go out there and you keep thinking about you struck out, what's wrong with my swing, why am I not, and all of a sudden the ball is hit and you're caught. 1-1. Foul back. For the Angels, a little more pressure. They're trailing 2-1 in the 7th, and they get the news that Houston defeated Arizona 4-1. That means Mike's ball club could fall 4 back unless they get something going today. 1-2 the count to Ibar. Ground ball to the hole, and the tying run is aboard. So Ibar, who brings a lot to the dance, slaps a single to left. He has stolen 7 bases. So the tying run is in good hands, or maybe you should say good feet. And Connor Gillespie coming up. So Nicasio greeted with a base hit. No one throwing in the Dodger bullpen. Callaspo playing in on the grass. Connor has flied to right, single to center, 1 for 2. Ibar off the bag, held on by Adrian Gonzalez, and they're going to have to really keep an eye on him. Nicasio with a record of 1-3. ERA is over 3, and he's in his 35th game. And a strike. It's a tough load, let's face it, even if you're in first place, to have a bullpen that's been as shaky as the Dodgers have been. They're hoping the acquisitions of Johnson, Avalon will improve, but right now it's up to Nicasio. 0-1. Fouled away. 0-2. Fernando Salas gets up now in the Angel bullpen. It was Salas who came in with a runner at first, Gonzalez, and gave up the home run on 3 consecutive changeups to Yasmani Grandal. So naturally they will be hitting for Alvarez if given a chance. Came close to using Shane Victorino earlier. 0-2. One and two. Waiting on deck, Chris Iannetta, the catcher, flied to left, flied to right, and then we'll see about Alvarez. One ball and 2 strikes. Big crowd, very quiet with the tying run at first. Breaking ball grounded to Gonzalez, on the bag for 1, down for the tag, double play. Alberto Griffith is going to argue. He started to talk to Tom Hallion. Mike Socek comes out of the dugout and is gesturing out to second base, where the fallen Ibar is slowly getting up. Now Kendrick is arguing. It looked like there was the out at second as well. And apparently not. So Ibar is safely aboard at second. Smothered. Now it had to be a tag down there, not a force play. And by the time the tag was applied, the runner had already been on the bag. Once Gonzalez stepped on first, there was no force, had to be a tag, and the tag had to be late. So Ibar's aboard, and it's a ground ball to first. Take another look. And he was in there before the tag. So 1 out. Second base umpire Alfonso Marquez right there to call it. So Ibar, the tying run, is at second with 1 out. Of course, if Gonzalez doesn't make the play at the bag, that ball's down the line and Ibar scores. Iannetta, 2 fly balls. Oh, and 1. C.J. Cron comes out on deck. He would be the batter for Alvarez. 0-1 the count to Iannetta. The Angels do not steal bases. If you're thinking about Ibar stealing third, it doesn't mean he won't, but they are not a running ball club at all. Check swing, no swing. The Angels coming into the game had stolen 29 bases. So they are 15th in the lowest number of stolen bases in the American League. That puts them 72% below the average. As we said, doesn't mean that Ibar won't try to steal third. 1 ball, 1 strike. Ground ball to third. Callaspo has Ibar coming, makes a diving tag to get him. Ibar was out for leaving the baselines anyway. So a gamble by Eric Ibar, the tying run, and he runs into a tag thinking Callaspo was going to throw to first. So that was a heads-up play by Alberto Callaspo, and Ibar is tagged out. Here comes Ibar, so he runs out of the zone, out of the lines. He was automatically out. The tag was also applied. So Iannetta on the fielder's choice, but a huge out on the tag by Callaspo. C.J. Cron will come up and bat. Meanwhile, Grandal using the time to go out and talk to his pitcher. And Cron loosening up. Now let's see, Rick Honeycutt is going to go out and talk. So we have a moment to talk about C.J. Cron. Born and still lives in Phoenix. He went to the University of Utah. He's a big fella, 6'4", 235-pounder. He can catch and he can play first base. His dad, a former player, and is now a manager in the Tigers organization. His father actually got to the big leagues, got 15 at bats. He was at the end of his Angels career. He was hitting behind Wally Joyner in the pecking order. He's also a cousin. Remember Chad Noller? Chad spent 9 years in the majors, caught here. Remember got into a fight in Chicago when he was in the bullpen and somebody stole his hat? Well, anyway, that's a little thumbnail sketch. Avalon is up in the pen, and here's Cron at the plate. And ball 1. Iannetta does not have a stolen base. You would certainly not expect him to even try. Cron hitting .254. He has a half a dozen home runs, 19 runs batted in. 1-1. Dodgers trying to hold on to a 2-1 lead. Dodgers got 2 in the third. 2 out singled by Rollins. Ground ball off Pujols' glove. Kendrick hit a home run. The Angels got a run home on a double by Calhoun. A broken bat ground ball from Pujols got him home. That's a strike. 1-2. Cron last year spent part of the time with the Angels and part of the times at Salt Lake. 1-2 the count. Check swing. 2-2. Just low. Bullpens are busy for each team. Avalon and Baez for the Dodgers. Salas and Gott for the Angels. 2-1 Dodgers, and we're in the 7th inning. 2 out. Iannetta, tough man to score at first base. And a high pop fly to Howie Kendrick. So the big play was Ibar trying to go from second to third on a ground ball to the third baseman, anticipating a throw to first that never occurred. And at the end of 6.5, it's still 2-1 Dodgers. We're going to the bottom of the 7th inning with the Dodgers leading 2-1. What really shook up the Angels, and for that matter so did I, on that tag play at second base. Tom Hallion, who was the umpire nearest to it, and he made the call out thinking that it was a double play. But of course Gonzalez had already touched first, and it had to be a tag play, and he was already on the bag for the tag. Anyway, we move to the 7th, 2-1, favor of the Dodgers. Fernando Salas. It's been Rasmus, Ramos, Alvarez, and Salas. Callaspo, who made the good play as Ibar ran into the tag. I think also what happened on that ground ball, Callaspo fumbled it just a little bit. And I think Ibar went for the fumble. It wasn't a fake. I think he thought he might have a play. Line drive takes the glove off Salas' hand, but he's still throwing out. The glove is on the mound by the rubber. So he goes back and picks it up. So Callaspo, a line drive out.
Center fielder,
takes the glove right off the hand. And Fernando is from Coatabampo in Sonora in Mexico. Goes running it down. He was originally drafted by the Cardinals in 2007. Salas is 6'2", 200-pounder, 30 years old. Pitched a couple of years in the Mexican League before the Cardinals picked him up. Then he was loaned back to the Mexican League to finish up the season. And finally came up to the Cardinals in 2010. Well, here's Jock Peterson. He has struck out twice. And ball one. The Angels load up the right side. Alex Guerrero comes out on deck. 1 ball and no strikes to Jock Peterson. Jim Johnson, another new Dodger, warming up in the bullpen. 2-0 the count. The way things have been going for Jock Peterson, it's been rare when he's actually been ahead in the count. Normally, a blink of the eye, it's 0-2. But right now, 2-0. 3-0. 2 runs, 6 hits for the Dodgers, 1 run, 5 hits for the Angels, and the Angels in the 8th inning have Gio Votella, Calhoun, Trout, and maybe Pujols. So not a soul moving in the ballpark. That's a strike. All right, 3-1 to Jock. And a high fly ball down the left field line, coming over to the line to pick the ball off. So a nice play by Murphy. And for Peterson, a long fly ball out. 2 down. And we'll be seeing Alex Guerrero in a moment. So Guerrero batting for Nicasio. Alex Guerrero started last night and went 0 for 4. Now is a pinch hitter today. In game 1 he started and hit a home run in his second at bat. It was a big home run with Grandal aboard. Guerrero has 11 home runs, 32 runs batted in. 0-1. On deck, Jimmy Rollins, and Salas trying to get through the inning. Oh, and 1. And he is hit by the pitch. So Guerrero hit by the pitch with 2 out, goes to first, and the batter will be Jimmy Rollins. Gets him on the left arm. He took a little walk with the bat. And then finally surrendered the bat and went to first. So Guerrero at first with 2 out. Jimmy Rollins grounded to third, singled off Pujols' glove, and that was followed by the 2-out home run by Kendrick. And then last time up, Kendrick hit into a double play. So Rollins up there now, takes ball 1, and Kendrick waits. So Jimmy 2 for 3. Kendrick tuning up on deck with a double and a home run. 2-0 the count to Jimmy Rollins. So it's been Rasmus, Ramos, Alvarez, and Salas. And that's lifted to straightaway center. Mike Trout is there, and there's the 3rd out. So no runs, no hits, a hit batter and a man left. And at the end of 7, it's 2-1 Dodgers. and they make several changes. First of all, Yasiel Puig goes into right field. Andre Ethier, who started the game in right field, moves to left, and Crawford comes out. The Dodgers also go to the bullpen and introduce a second newcomer after Matt Latos pitched so well. Latos went 6 innings, allowed 1 run, 4 hits, walked 1. He was not striking out people at all. Latos had just 1 strikeout, and who was it but Mike Trout? So now here's Jim Johnson, his best years with Baltimore. He had 2 years. 1 year he saved 51, and another he saved 50. That was back in 2012 and 2013. So here we go in the 8th, and Jim Johnson facing Gio Votella, Cole Calhoun, and Mike Trout. Johnson is a big man. He is 6'5", Latos 6'6", and Jim 225. First pitch a strike, 0-1. Johnson has been very effective since May 1. He also pitches very well at night. Earned run average 2 in the evening. 0-1. Another fastball and another strike, 0-2. Johnson at one time, as he works on Gio Votella. Jim was a volunteer fireman. Not bad for a reliever. And he was also a handyman's assistant. Lives in Sarasota, Florida. Ball 1, 1-2. Right-hand hitters have a big problem with Johnson if they try to pull the ball. If they try to pull, they're hitting 190. Same thing left-handers, if they try to pull him, they're hitting 158. 1-2. Off speed, strike 3. So Gio Votella backs off, takes strike 3, and we have 1 out in the 8th. Take another look. Little breaking ball that dropped in nicely. The paid attendance, and a good one for a really good ball game. 52,116. 52,116. So 3 big crowds for 3 important games. All right, Johnson now facing Calhoun, who has walked, flied to right, doubled, and scored the only Angel run. And on deck, Mike Trout. Ball 1. And a drive into left center. Going back on the ball is Peterson. It is gone. Home run by Cole Calhoun, and it ties up the game 2-2. So Johnson, after the other newcomer Latos goes 6 and allows 1, Johnson gives up a home run, and the ball game is tied 2-2. In the Dodger bullpen, J.P. Howell loosening up. For Calhoun, that's his 14th home run. 57th run batted in. So they're even at 2, and here's Trout. And ball 1. Mike Trout struck out, flied to right, and grounded to second. Johnson in his career has saved 133, has a 80% success rate. However, the pitch by Calhoun allows him to give up the tying run. So 2 runs, 6 hits for each team. The outfield split. Ethier deep in left, but Peterson in right center as Trout takes the strike, and the count 1-2. Most successful reliever, Joe Nathan. Jim shaking no. 1 ball and 2 strikes. 2-2. 2012, Johnson, the 10th pitcher in history to record 50 saves or more. Wound up 51, and he was the Relief Man of the Year award. Fastball fouled away. Mike Trout up there with Pujols to follow. 2 balls, 2 strikes, 1 out. 2-2, top of the 8th. Just the kind of a ball game you'd expect between these two. Yesterday, a tough ball game. The Dodgers winning 3-1, and the Dodgers winning the first game 5-3. Dodgers trying to sweep Mike's ball club for the first time since 2006, but Calhoun has tied it up, and it's still alive. 2-2. Little low. 3-2 the count. For Johnson, basically fastball, curveball, and change. His fastball, they say, very heavy. Good sinking action. Slider, half swing, strike 3. So the Dodgers do a very good job on Mike Trout after the first game. He's fooled on the breaking ball. Strikes out twice today. That's 4 times in the last 2 games. So Trout goes back in the dugout. 2 down, and now Albert Pujols. To look ahead for the moment for the Dodgers in the bottom of the 8th inning, it'll be Kendrick, Gonzalez, and Ethier. That's ball 1. And ball 2. If you are keeping score, Johnson bats 9th. So Kendrick, Gonzalez, and Ethier will be coming up. That's a strike. Pujols grounded to third, single to left, grounded to short, broke his bat, and Calhoun scored from third. 2-1. Ground ball to a stacked left side. Jimmy Rollins with the throw. However, Cole Calhoun hits a home run, and we're heading for the bottom of the 8th inning with the Angels 2 and the Dodgers 2. On over 400 mobile and connected devices with MLB.TV Premium, real-time highlights, live look-ins, and more. every night on every device. Blackout and other restrictions apply. So visit MLB.tv for details. A note on the home run by Cole Calhoun. That's the first home run allowed by Johnson since April the 18th. He also gave one up on April the 17th. But those two in early April until when Calhoun took him downtown today. Meanwhile, for the 5th time, the Angels used 5 pitchers: Rasmus, Ramos, Alvarez, Salas, and Joe Smith, facing Kendrick, Gonzalez, and Ethier. One of the things about Joe Smith is a quote by Chris Iannetta. He called Smith's sidearm slider a boomerang. Well, last year, Smith had a solid year. He had an earned run average of 1.8, and he saved 15. Joe's from Cincinnati, 6'2", 205-pounder, and that's that sidearm ball one. Smith is 6'2", 205 pounds. He was originally drafted by the Mets at a Wright State University in Ohio. 3rd round pick 9 years ago. Came up with the Mets, then went to the Indians, and here with the Angels. With the foul ball, the count 1 ball and 1 strike to Howie Kendrick. Joe Smith, his wife, is a former Miss Teen USA and a network TV sideline reporter. 1-2 the count. The Smiths formed a foundation to raise funds to battle Huntington's disease. So they have a website, helpcurehd.com. Ground ball to the right side, Gio Vitella, 1 away. So Kendrick with a double, a home run, hit into a double play, and grounds out. 1 out in the 8th. Adrian Gonzalez popped up, struck out, and walked. One away, bottom of the 8th, in a 2-2 tie. The pressure is on the Angels. They've lost 5 straight, 8 out of 9, and Houston won. The Dodgers know that they lead the Giants by a game and a half, and the Giants lost. One ball and 1 strike. Fouled away, 1-2. For Joe Smith, he's in his 45th game. He has a record of 4-3. As far as home runs allowed, Smith has not allowed a home run. On deck, Andre Ethier. 1-2. High fly ball, backtracking his Ibar. So we have 2 out in the 8th inning. The Dodgers' last base hit was a single by Rollins in the 5th inning. And the Dodgers looked like they had something going. 2 base hits with 1 out. And Kendrick, who had been the hero with a double and a home run, hit into a double play. And they have not had a base hit since. They've had 2 base runners since the 5th inning. Gonzalez, who walked in the 6th, and Guerrero hit by a pitch in the 7th. Ball 1 to Ethier. Andre has grounded to short and struck out twice. 0 for 3. Grandal on deck. Off the plate, ball 2. Pretty good combination Smith and Street, or Street and Smith, but Street's always the closer. Smith replaced Ernesto Friere in late June a year ago. Three and 0. And a strike. I think they might have green lighted Ethier 3 and 0. Started to swing and then held off. 3 and 1. Fastball lifted to center and deep. That goes Trout away back to the track at the wall. It's gone. The first home run that Joe Smith has allowed this year, and what a time to give it up. Andre's last home run was the end of June over in Arizona. So it's been over a month, and how sweet that must have felt. So Andre Ethier breaks the tie. Dodgers lead 3-2, and the batter is Yasmani Grandal. I had the feeling he was going to swing 3 and 0, and I certainly had the feeling he was going to swing 3 and 1. Ethier got one of those sinkers at the knees, and a dangerous pitch to most left-hand batters anyway. Trout could only watch it sail away. So when the Angels come up in the 9th inning, they are due to send up Murphy, a left-hand batter, Ibar, a switch hitter, and Gillespie, a left-hand batter. So we will see. For the Dodgers to pull it out would not only be a sweep, but more importantly, it would give them a 2.5 game lead over San Francisco. And ball 4. By the way, it shouldn't be any surprise that Andre Ethier comes up with a clutch home run. In close and late situations, Andre Ethier is hitting .340. The #1 clutch hitter of all people is the second baseman of the Angels, Johnny Giovatello, hitting .423. But Andre skies one over the center field wall, and the Dodgers lead 3-2. So now Yasiel Puig making his first appearance with the bat. And we'll see what he does with the first pitch. The question of whether he should take or attack. And we'll see what he does this time. 7 home runs, 26 runs batted in. Takes for a strike. Puig last night 0 for 3 with a walk. Game 1 he had 1 hit to drive in a run. Yasiel batting .250. And lines one foul. Off speed and up. The kind of a pitch that looks like a basketball, and the kind that an aggressive hitter like Puig would pull foul. 0-2. So J.P. Howell now is throwing in the bullpen with Murphy, the left-hand hitter, Ibar the switch, and Gillespie left. Oh, 0-2 the count to Puig. 2 out. Grandal at first. Down and dirty. For Smith, quite a shot to go the whole year without allowing a home run until here in August. Way outside. Great save by Iannetta. Wow. That's a wild pitch for sure. Iannetta makes a great play. I bet that had to be appreciated, especially by Mike Scioscia. Side-on slider and a great backhand lunge. Two and 2. And a chopper to the left of Ibar. He has to throw back to Giovatella for the force. However, Andre Ethier, who started in right and is hoping to finish up in left with his home run. And the Dodgers lead 3-2. And gives up a home run to Cole Calhoun. He had not given up a home run since early April. And then Andre Ethier hits a home run in the bottom of the 8th inning against Joe Smith, who had not allowed a home run all year. So you talk about lightning strikes late in the game. That sums it up. 3-2 Dodgers. Shane Victorino will bat now for David Murphy. Then it'll be Ibar, and we'll see about Gillespie. So all three of the new outfielders for the Angels have made an appearance. Murphy started the game. DeJesus batted in the 6th inning. And now Victorino here in the 9th. Shane at one time played for the Dodgers, hitting .231. The flying Hawaiian, and boy, he could really run. He was a star in track. Takes a strike. Born in Maui, lives in Wailuka. He has 4 Gold Gloves in his long and very successful career. 1-1 the count. Victorino, a World Series champion with the Phillies back in 2008 and with the Red Sox in 2013. He's 34. He'll be 35 in November. Dodgers originally drafted him in the 6th round. 1-1. 1-2. Kind of an interesting note on it. The fact that the Dodgers invited Victorino and another Hawaiian for a tryout at Dodger Stadium. Victorino made it. The other Hawaiian didn't make it. His name, Troy Polamalu, who became the Pittsburgh Steeler All-Pro safety. Remember Troy with the wild mane of hair. Slap foul. For Joe Smith, although he certainly wouldn't like to think about it, it took a year just about to give up a home run. Last August the 10th, Joe gave up a home run to Yoenis Cespedes, the great outfielder from Cuba by way of Oakland and Detroit. 1-2 in the dirt. Pedro Baez is throwing in the Dodger bullpen. Eric Ibar, switch hitter on deck. Ibar against Howell would turn around, and batting right-handed, Eric's batting .312. 2-2. And a shot up the middle for a base hit. So the Angels now have the tying run aboard in the ninth inning of what a tough, wonderful game. And the batter, Eric Ibar. Now Victorino, who was a track star in Hawaii, at one time was a terror on the bases, stole as many as 37, 36, 34. Of course, he has slowed up a bit, but nevertheless a wise base runner carrying the tying run. Ibar hitting right-handed. Time. Ibar, as you may know if you've been watching the series, is a wonderful bunter. He has 5 bunt singles this year. He has 100 in his career. He has 21 infield singles this year. Single to left field in the 7th. Comebacker. Howell low to Rollins for 1. He had a double play ball and almost threw it away. It was a fine play by Jimmy Rollins. That thing could have wound up in center field. So a wonderful play by Jimmy Rollins. Bad play by JP. He'd be the first to agree. Look at this. Down there. And Rollins still able to make the pick, but not able to double up Ibar. You might have gotten him on a good throw to second since he was hitting right-handed. So instead, the Dodgers missed the double play, and we'll see just how important that is. Ibar has stolen 7. We have Connor Gillespie, a left-hand batter, 1 for 3 at the plate. The one thing about Ibar, Howell as a left-hander will be looking at him. And then you have the catcher, Chris Iannetta, right-hand batter on deck. So 3-2 Dodgers, top of the 9th. Tying run at first, 1 out. Howell off the rubber. Howell in his 41st game, he has been absolutely brilliant. He is 4-1 and his earned run average less than 1. It's 0.8. Remember, Jansen is not well, so it's up to people like Howell to close up the game. They'll keep an eye on Ibar, that's for sure. We were talking about Victorino being a good runner. Ibar has stolen as many as 30. So they have another knowledgeable base runner. And ball 1. So this is the battle within the war. Howell trying to keep Ibar at the bag. Alfredo Griffin, who stole enough bases in his career, comes over to say something to Ibar. Howell really just froze in his set position on the mound. Ibar trying to look probably at Howell's feet. Probably, if I had to guess, at the heel of his left foot. A lot of hesitation on Howell and Ibar's spot. So there's quite a battle going on. J.P. Howell and Eric Ibar again. Alfredo Griffin trying to help the runner, advising him perhaps of some small detail. If it's not the heel on the left foot, what about the right knee? They're always looking for that one tip off, the direction of the throw, to the plate or to first. The better the move really means the closer you are to a balk. And he goes over there. You can bet the veteran umpire Tom Hallion at first base. His eyes are riveted on Howell. Tom's had a long, wonderful career, veteran umpire. He certainly knows a balk when he sees one. So this is a big battle between the mound and first base. Ibar now takes a little bit bigger lead. And time, because Gillespie backs out of the plate. It's kind of distracting for the hitter. The outfield is deep. Peterson shading slightly to left center with a left-hand batter. 1-1. Ball 2. Ibar, as Howell just holds the ball, and then Ibar leans as if he's going to go, but Howell goes to the plate. And again, Alfredo Griffin over to say something to him. 3-2 in favor of the Dodgers. Ninth inning, 1 out. Ibar the tying run, and the left-hander Howell trying to keep him in place. This is really a high wire act here for both of them. 2-1. Ibar bluffs, missed at the plate. 2-2. Pretty good bluff. Ibar has to feel confident on that bluff, that he knew Howell was not coming over. Now 2-2 with 1 out. See whether Mike would try to run him. Remember, he has stolen 7, but he's been caught 4 times. And a breaking ball got him, but down to second base goes Ibar, and he is in there. So Gillespie strikes out, and in the process of striking out, Ibar steals second base. Breaking ball in the dirt, no play for Grandal, and Ibar was able to move into second. So the tying run is out there with 2 down. And we will see now. Don Mattingly is heading for home plate. Scott Van Slyke is going to come out in a double switch. So J.P. Howell will apparently come out. Van Slyke looks like he'd be heading towards, well, let's see, Puig spot? Yeah. Puig make the last out, so they can put the pitcher there, and Van Slyke can bat 9th, and we'll be back. They take out an excellent right fielder with a great arm. They want to have room So Baez will come in, and if the Dodgers wind up getting tied, Van Slyke would be the third batter in the bottom of the ninth inning. So a tough ball game as Alex Guerrero and Yasiel Puig sit shoulder to shoulder. Meanwhile, J.P. Howell, 12 very tough pitches trying to keep Ibar on. And now it's up to Baez against Chris Iannetta. Iannetta has flied to left, flied to right, grounded to Callaspo, and that's when Ibar ran into the tag. Baez, by the way, is looking for his first career save. It's been that kind of a game. Fastball hit to center. Peterson, the ball's hit over his head, way over his head. It's bouncing against the wall. In comes Ibar, and the game is tied. And perhaps that was the reason that Don Mattingly was thinking, I've got to play Van Slyke. I don't have confidence in the bullpen. And sure enough, Baez makes one pitch, and the game is tied. So for Howell, the run is charged to him. And of course, Baez gives up the long double to tie up the game. Taylor Featherston, third baseman, is out on deck. And Featherston looks like he'll be coming up to bat for Joe Smith. So Iannetta, 0 for 3, doubles over the head of Peterson. He never had a chance. So it's 3-3 in the ninth.
Taylor Featherston.
And here is Featherston batting for Smith. So the pitchers who gave up the home runs, Joe Smith, Jim Johnson. Johnson's off the hook, and Smith could pick up a win if Iannetta scores. Ball one. So Baez is still looking for his first career save. 3 runs, 8 hits for the Angels. 3 runs, 7 hits for the Dodgers. Dodger bullpen gives up a run in the 8th and a run in the 9th, and that is somewhat of a familiar story. And yet, remember, the ball club's in first place by a game and a half. Fastball, 1-1. Featherston started yesterday, walked, grounded out, and popped up. When he popped up, he was the 15th consecutive out against Clayton Kershaw. Featherston did not play in the first game. 1 ball, 1 strike. 1-2. One and two the count. Taylor Featherston trying to keep the inning alive. Booming double by Chris Iannetta to get the game even. 1-2. And down he goes. A little late as far as Baez is concerned because of the double he just surrendered to Iannetta. So in the 9th inning, the Angels scratch for a run just as they did in the 8th. And we go to the bottom of the 9th inning in a 3-3 tie. Inning. The Angels make a couple of moves. First of all, they put Victorino in left field. They bring in a new pitcher, Trevor Gott. For the Dodgers, they've had some moments. They have had a total of 6 of them, walk-off victories. Guerrero has had 1. Kendrick has had 2. Grandal, Van Slyke, and Hernandez each 1. And they're looking for a victory, walk-off or carry-off as we go to the bottom of the 9th inning. 3 runs, 8 hits for the Angels. 3 runs, 7 hits for the Dodgers. Victorino now in left. Remember, he has 4 Gold Gloves. He can go and get them. And on the mound, Trevor Gott. He's from Lexington, Kentucky, originally drafted by the Padres 2 years ago out of the University of Kentucky. He came along with Houston Street in the big deal with San Diego. And he is pitching now to Alberto Callaspo. Ball 1. Callaspo at third has struck out twice, hit back to the box. That's a fastball at the knees for a strike. 1 ball and 1 strike. Got with a good sinking fastball, slider, and change. Sinking fastball, 2-1. Kind of a quick delivery with a head jerk. Deception more than effort. Throws sinkers most of the time. That's what they really like about him. Little chopper foul. 2 balls and 2 strikes the count. Trevor is an even 690-pounder. He has come along in a hurry. He'll be 23 years old at the end of the month. Remember, he was signed in 2013. 2-2. There's a sinker at 97. Wow. 3-2. Callaspo with Jock Peterson on deck, and then Van Slyke. Still 3-2. Latos, Nicasio, Johnson, Howell, Baez. Latos allowed a run. Johnson a run. Howell a run. Rasmus allowed 2. That's a fly ball to left. Victorino is there. So Callaspo, fly ball to left, 1 down. And Jock Peterson coming up.
Center fielder, number 31, Jock Peterson.
Jock Peterson struck out twice and flied to left field in the 7th inning. Made a big play way back in the 4th inning to cut off a run on a ball hit by Ibar. The Angels have played 6 extra inning games, in case we go that far, and they are 3-3 in the extra innings. Dodgers have played 8, and they're 4-4. So Socha saw his ball club trailing 2-0. Mattingly saw his team leading late in the game. And now they're both locked in 3-3. 2-0 the count to Jock Peterson. They load up the right side on the infield. Howie Kendrick's been the hero. He had a 2-run home run in the 3rd inning. No hero in a tie game. That's a strike. 2-1. Scott Van Slyke, remember, on deck in that double switch. Two and two. One out, bases empty, 3-3, bottom of the ninth. 2-2 to Peterson. So another long day for young Jock. Strikes out 3 times, flies to left. And the batter now, Scott Van Slyke. Scott Van Slyke hitting .256. Scotty has 4 home runs, 19 runs batted in. Ball 1. When the Angels come up in the 10th inning, if indeed there's a 10th, Gio Votella, Calhoun, and Trout. Boy, that sinking fastball really sinks, and it gets up there in a hurry at 97. So he's a prodigy, a kid signed just 2 years ago, pitching in a clutch situation in the 9th inning. Remember, Houston won, so the Angels can ill afford to lose 6 in a row and 9 out of 10. And they give the ball to this kid out of Lexington, who apparently is a thoroughbred. Sinker, 2-2. Big deal for the Angels to get Houston Street and Trevor Gott. Off speed, ground ball to the left is short by the diving Ibar. So after all those 97-mile-an-hour sinkers, Gott throws an off speed pitch, and Van Slyke singles to center. Ibar trying to smother it. Eric couldn't get there. So the Dodgers now the same number of hits and runs. 3 runs, 8 hits for each team. And Jimmy Rollins, who has 2 hits today, 2 for 4. Grounded to third, singled off Pujols' glove, single to left, and fly to center. Strike. 0-1. On deck, Howie Kendrick. Both bullpens are quiet now. They've already contributed heavily to the story. 1 ball and 1 strike. Latos, Nicasio, Johnson, Howell, and Baez. Rasmus, Ramos, Alvarez, Salas, Smith, and Gott. Little fly ball, slicing foul down the line. No play. So 1-2 the count to Jimmy Rollins. Rollins hitting .217, 11 home runs, 33 runs batted in. Gott's in his 21st game. ERA 2.4. 5 walks, 10 strikeouts. Van Slyke has stolen 2 bases and been caught once, although the chances are Van Slyke's going during a game it's hit and run. 1 ball and 2 strikes. 2 out, 9th inning, 3-3. Well, the first time in a while he comes upstairs, up around the eyes at 97. 52,116, and they're hanging tough. Fouled away. Angels trying to win their 56th game. Dodgers trying to win their 60th. Two balls and 2 strikes. And ball 3. So the Dodgers get a slight edge with 2 down. Scott Van Slyke will be going. Scioscia asking for time. It's all about Albert Pujols, and with a left-hand hitter up, they take Pujols off the bag. Remember, the ground ball by Rollins might have been fielded by other first basemen in the 3rd inning. Van Slyke goes, but it's a fly ball to Victorino. No runs, 1 hit, a man left, and we are heading for the 10th in a 3-3 tie. Double that scored Ibar to tie it up. So after 5 pitches, he's now on his own. No action in the bullpen back of him. Interesting, in the extra inning games, the Angels have been in 6 extra inning games. They are 3-3, all at home. This is their first extra inning game on the road. The Dodgers are 4-4 and 2-0 in extra inning games at home. So with that, Gio Vitella, Calhoun, and Trout in the 10th inning. Three runs, 8 hits for each. Drew Rosinski, who was just called up, is now in the bullpen for the Angels. And there's a drive to center. Peterson will flag it. That ball was hard hit. 1 out. Now the batter is Cole Calhoun, who had walked and flied to right, doubled and scored a run in the 6th inning, and homered in the 8th inning. His home run in the 8th inning tied it up with a home run against Jim Johnson. First home run that Jim had given up since way back in April. And then Joe Smith came in and gave up a home run for the first time in a year. And here we are. So Calhoun with Trout on deck. Right. Baez from Bonnie in the Dominican, and Big Trout tuning up. Baez 6'2", 200-pounder, 27 years old. 1-1. For Baez, facing Calhoun, he's basically a fastball pitcher. He's been clocked up around 96. They hope it has good sink when he throws it. Trying to develop a slider, and that's about his armament. 1-1. Off the plate, ball 2. Off the plate at 97. Down in the Angel bullpen, Houston Street joins Drew Rosinski. We're in the 10th, 3-3. Too much time. Calhoun backs out. Cole Calhoun from Buckeye, Arizona. And ball 3. Baez came in with a record of 3-2, an ERA of 2.8. He's done well, 8 walks, 36 strikeouts. But he's behind now, 3-1 to Calhoun. High fly ball to left field. Ethier is there. So we have 2 down here in the 10th inning, and now here comes Mike Trout.
Number 27, Mike Trout.
You always have to think about it with this kind of a hitter at the plate. Baez has been in 29 games, and he's allowed 2 home runs. So here is Trout, who has struck out twice, flied to right, and grounded out. And on deck, Albert Pujols. Ball 1. Baez hits 98 on the gun. Of course, they consistently talk in the big leagues. The velocity doesn't mean anything if there's no movement. Well, that was 98 and a 1-ball, 1-strike count. Dodgers trying to win their 4th in a row. The Angels trying to snap a 5-game losing streak. Almost hit him. Ball 2. 2-1. Trout, by the way, has been hit 8 times by pitches. Fastball hit to right field. It's playable. Van Slyke. So the ball's hit in the air. A line drive out to center. Fly ball to left. Fly ball to right. Baez is through the top of the 10th. And we go to the bottom of the 10th. Hendrick, Gonzalez, and Ethier in a 3-3 tie. And Ethier Kendrick has a double and a home run. Ethier has a home run. And Gonzalez 0 for 3 with a walk. Baez made a total of 15 pitches. And now another youngster, Drew Rosinski, coming in. He's from Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, right near where Bill Russell came from. He's 6'2" and 190. Rosinski was originally signed by the Indians. Actually, when he got out of high school, he went on to Ohio State, and he was not drafted. So he signed with Rockford of the Frontier League. Pitched one game. The Indians signed him. Then the Indians let him go. He went back to Rockford, and the Angels picked him up last year. So for the Angels, it's Rasmus, Ramos, Alvarez, Salas, Smith, Gott, and Rosinski. 7 pitchers, and he gets a strike. Dodgers have used 5, so a total of 12 pitches in the game. 3-3. Check swing. They're going to look. Swing. Boy, pretty much of a herky-jerk delivery. Check swing by Kendrick. I don't know how he saw the ball on that delivery. We'll take another look. And down he goes. So Kendrick strikes out. He goes 2 for 5. And with 1 out in the 10th inning,
Number 23.
There's that herky-jerk glove, extended arm, head seems to be bobbing. And now the batter, Adrian Gonzalez. Popped up, struck out, walked, popped up. Adrian hitting .293. He's been carrying a big bat. He's hit .375 since the All-Star break. Breaking ball for ball 1. Rosinski, fastball, splitter, and a changeup. Boy, that is hard to pick up the ball. And with that kind of a delivery, he can pitch up. 2-0. And 3-0 on deck, Andre Ethier. So Gonzalez on a 3-0 count, 1 down, 10th inning in a 3-3 tie. And a strike. He took a little bit off, still got up there at 91. But he's been clocked at 95. Drew Rosinski. And there's ball 4. So Gonzalez walks a second time. Dodgers have the winning run at first, and with 1 out, Andre Ethier coming up.
Fielder number 16, Andre Ethier.
Andre Ethier hit the first home run of the year against Joe Smith. In fact, first home run in a year that Joe has given up. Cleared the center field fence. That was in the 8th inning. But the Angels came right back to tie it up in the top of the 9th. Andre, before the home run, had grounded out and struck out twice. That's the up pitch we were talking about. He can afford to go up there. On deck, Yasmani Grandal. And that finds the mark. 1 ball and 1 strike. 1 out, 10th inning, 3-3. Each side with 8 hits. Dodgers have 2 home runs. The Angels have 1. One ball, 1 strike. And a drive to right, deep to right. Gracing is Calhoun. It's gone. Ethier hits his second home run, and the Dodgers win it in 10. Hits one into the Angel bullpen, his second home run of the day. He has 3 RBIs for the game, and the Dodgers win it 5-3. They remain 2.5 games in front of the Giants now. Andre Ethier certainly the player of the game. For the Angels, a bitter defeat after coming from behind twice. The Angels have now lost 6 in a row, 9 of 10, and they are 4 games behind Houston. What a finish to what a game before 52,116. So Ethier does it. Dodgers lead by 2.5, and they head to Philadelphia. For all of us, to all of you, we wish you a very pleasant good afternoon, everybody.